That's it. I think we're going to start.
And really fast, if the boys didn't go down to Munch, they instead went with Larry
We'll check it.
and
Make sure
farmed
we're-
and
Oh,
did farming stuff and threw rocks in the pond and,
I was sure they were busy doing something. No, we had plenty of help.
Oh, did you?
Nobody
Okay,
did.
good.
No, we had plenty of help.
they thought they were just gonna have a,
Lazy day around
Lazy
the
day.
house. Yeah. Larry was telling me about the Joe's getting his, AI,
Mhm.
and how he's really into that.
yes.
Quizzes.
We are live.
Well, with Quorum being present, it's 5 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. I've got an agenda there in front of you. We have no changes or,
No, no change.
all right. Well, we will turn it right on over to you and see where you want to take us tonight, Bill.
All right, if you go ahead and open, let's start with the booklet first and I'll kind of walk you through some of the things that I would like to visit with the board about this evening. And I'll start with the PowerPoint here in just a few minutes. You can see in just a very brief, concise agenda there. We do have the potential for an action item, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. If you turn to the second page, you see some of the topics I would like to spend a little bit of time this evening discussing. And there's 2 or 3 that I really need to make sure we get through. And so I'm going, even though they're in like numbered items, we don't necessarily need to follow down because there's a couple of them that we're going to be talking about simultaneous because they're interconnected with each other. So if we don't get to like a community survey or something else, then that's fine. Because if you recall in our planning sessions, we made the rule that we got a 3-hour planning session, we're not going to exceed that. We may stop early, but we're not going to go past 8 o'clock. And I really have a need for an executive session toward the end of the meeting, and I want to make sure I give myself ample time at that time to visit with the board. So if we get to like 7 o'clock, 7:15, and we don't get through all the items, I would suggest then that we just go straight to executive session, because I want to make sure that we have ample time to have executive session at that time and still finish by 8 o'clock. And if we don't get to every item on this list, that's fine. We can go back and revisit. There's other ways that we can cover that. If you turn to the next page, there's just to refresh you or familiarize you with some documents that we have here. Some of these probably look familiar to you. The district roof maintenance budget. Well, they are upside down, aren't they? We've got to remember which way, Dee. You got to flip your book around there. So we have.
You read mine, I'll read yours.
That's okay. There we go. Let's do that. We have the district roof maintenance budget. I updated this because there have been some changes to our roof maintenance plan. I'll share that with you here in just a few minutes. A lot of what we talked about tonight is going to be long-range planning and facilities planning. And it's really going to focus probably more on facilities than anything else. Because there's some things that are happening and that could happen in the next 12 to 18 months that I need to have some general direction from the board about how you would like to proceed on several of those items. We talked about, one of those we will talk about pretty heavy tonight. Anyway, one of the things, just real quick on the roof maintenance budget that has changed, we had, if you go to under 2019, 2020, you see the auditorium and the elevator. Well, the auditorium was completed. It originally was projected, I think, 2 or 3 years later. It was completed as an insurance claim, and the total cost was like $60-some thousand. So where it says insurance, that number has already been taken care of. It used to be way over here. I moved it up, and that project is just about ready to be completed. Stiles is finishing the sheet metal type, the guttering and things that they have to do. Once it's completed, then we will pay them, and Music will cut us a check for the difference. So that helped us out in the long run, because that's not capital dollars we had to use. We ended up with it'll be the total cost minus $1,000 deductible. And so we will pay them, and they'll reimburse us back everything except $1,000. All right, so that was a good thing, and we were able to find that, and Stiles found it, turned it into Music agreed, and so we have that one done and taken care of. The other items that I need to bring to your attention, if you look on FY21, 2020-21, you see number 8, area number 8 under elementary, upper elementary, $149,800. That originally was over on 2023-24. We moved it up because we found a problem over on the upper elementary. Part of the problem is that last year when Stiles went up there, They were just going to do a recoat at that time, but they found too much moisture underneath, so Nick Stotts came to me and said, you know, that really needs to be a replacement, we gotta take it off. So we're all good to go on that, we're gonna do it in a couple of years down the road. He said it'll be fine. But the problem that we had then, or we were gonna try to consolidate it with the upper elementary into one project. But then the other day, we noticed that one of the parapet walls is starting to pull away from the roof, all right? So we're seeing some pretty extensive damage. He went up and looked at it and said, you know, we can go back and we can seal it, all right? We can put a bar in there which will tie the roof back to the parapet wall. We can get you through till winter. But he said, you really need to get that taken care of in the spring. He said, you can't really wait a couple years down the road, or even after that. So he said, for budgetary purposes, I said, well, I really don't want to do them both at the same time. He said, let's move that there. The upper elementary, we moved to 2023-24. So those two numbers changed. If you look over 2023-24, the 200,200 is now going to be that year. We've got 2 years we're not doing any roofing because we're kind of staggering that. We're buying buses every year, a bus every year, and so we're staggering that back out. That's kind of important for the conversation I'm going to have with you this evening about the RFP that's before you, the RFQ that's before you concerning energy-based contracting, because of something I discovered today when I visited with Ryan Evans with Integrity, options that really gives you, something that we can do in the state of Missouri that gives you as a school board more options, all right? And I think it's a really good thing for us, and we can plan ahead accordingly and probably make the best use of our budgetary dollar. And I'll talk to you about that in just a few minutes. So kind of keep that in mind. The next page, that's our transportation budget. We've talked about that before, so you kind of know what we're doing every year. And then you can kind of see our combined roof maintenance and transportation budget. You see that we had we have our final construction lease purchase payment 2022-23, which works out because then our really heavy roofs come in after that. And so we're saving about $265,000. We don't have that lease payment anymore, so that will help us get that roof taken care of at that time. So kind of keep that in mind as we have this other conversation moving forward. The next item, the next sheet behind that, I just put in the excerpts of the RFQ that I received from Integrity. And I gave Tony a copy of it, gave Shane a copy of the entire document. You have yours? So there's mine. Oh, there it is. I got yes, all right, here's what the actual document looks like. Okay, oh, mine's over there. There you go. Here's what the actual document looks like. There were 3 of them, so I gave one to Tony, Shane, so they could review it as well. I put in what I consider to be the essential sections of that for everyone, because the first part of it's like references, and here's our work, and we do great stuff, and all this other stuff. But I really wanted you to see what the technical aspects of what they're trying to do with the investment grade audit. And I want to make sure that before we agree this evening, if that's what the board decides to do, on hiring Integrity to do this, that everyone is very, very clear on what this process is, okay, what it's all about, what we're trying to accomplish, and the value of doing this, all right? Because we've been talking about this for 3 or 4 months now. We've had Ryan down twice. I know we talked about it among ourselves once. And so we're at that point, you know, I know time is of the essence, but when you start talking long-range planning, you know, we need to probably start making some decisions as we head down the road, all right, in terms of what we want to try to accomplish. If you want to see this whole document and kind of what's in there and some of the other stuff to talk about, feel free to do that. But, you know, one of the things I want to share with you is kind of some plan. There's really multiple things here. We have this, we have the roofing projects, we have the FEMA grant. It's like we've got like multiple things that are happening, they're all kind of interconnected, okay? And I'll explain why here in just a moment. And then the rest of this, I think I have if we have time, I wouldn't mind going back and revisiting the community survey just to make sure we're not missing anything, all right? Because that was 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And I think the intention of the board, and if it's not, you need to tell me, is that we do at least an annual survey. It's not a biannual survey, so I need to know how often you want to do this. And the survey doesn't need to be the same survey every year. It may be based on what we got going on at the time, you know? And one of the things that we may talk about briefly tonight, obviously, there's not going to be any decisions this evening, but we have had some prior discussions about where are we with respect to a bond issue. And I only say that because we have facility needs. And I'm going to talk about facility needs here in just a few minutes. So it's nothing like we're talking about something in the next 12 months. It could be 18 months. You know, there's really no timeline in terms of doing that. But I think we need some information ahead of time before we make that decision. And the investment grade audit can go a long way toward giving us the information we need to make some decisions, especially about March or April. All right, that's to me at the time that this board needs to decide long term. Here's the direction we're headed. All right, because of these reasons. So we'll go back. We can look if we have time to do the community survey. I still want it in there so you can go back and review it again. It's interesting, some of the comments about what people thought about the state of our facilities, because most of our folks feel like our facilities are just fine. You know, so I think it's important then that we educate folks about what our needs are. And it's easy to do that if you're not in the buildings a lot. It's easy to kind of make those statements in a survey, but I think it's important that if we believe going down the road that we need to do something, we're really going to have to work, all of us, as far as educating our patrons about why this is important to us and why we're asking them for support. Then I want to talk a little bit about board refresher training. I know you're all looking forward to that. You all knew the change in the law, right? So you have to get an hour more training for each subsequent year of service on the board. Or you can do one shot for 3 hours and you're good for 3 years. We can have MSBA come out and do a three-hour session and you don't have to get another training for 3 years. So, or we can do the one shot at a time deal. So I know they had them like in Springfield, I think they had one. But yeah, they had like a schedule, but I'm like, you all would have to take off and drive and probably take a whole day off to get training, and I'm not sure we need to do that. I think we can get somebody out here to help with that if we need to. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. See what else we have, just going back to that main item. Okay, and then performance goals, kind of where you want me to, I just want to make sure I'm clear on where you want me to focus my energy moving forward. So, let's start up here. Retreat tonight, what I like to do is kind of give you a roadmap on where we've been and what we've done. Because we've been like at this for a year and a half on things that we've accomplished in the last year and a half. So again, our working guidelines, open conversation, stay on task, set a time limit. Our time limit is 8 o'clock. We're going to be done by 8 o'clock, irrespective. We may not get everything covered, but we will be finished by 8 o'clock. Possible action taken this evening. There's a potential for an action item on the agenda. Let me take you back to a year ago. This is our board retreat a year ago, and this is what we accomplished. All right. The big conversation a year ago is conversion of our middle school from a traditional schedule, from a block schedule to a traditional schedule to a 7-period day. That's been accomplished, all right? And the transition has gone relatively well. I visit with Dr. Spencer from time to time, and she said, you know, they adapted very well. The kids adapted immediately, and staff's coming on board, and we've heard very little negative conversation about the block schedule from our patrons, our students, quite honestly from our staff. I just haven't heard a whole lot, neither has she. Right, so that conversion's gone very, very well. There's a larger conversation to be had sometime. I'm not sure tonight's the evening to have that, but you know, we still have block schedule at our high school. I'm not saying there's anything that needs to be done with that, but that's another philosophical conversation at some point in time, if there's a need to have that. Talking about a school protection officer, that's been accomplished. A year ago, we were talking about it. Now we have a school protection officer program. We're working on Goal 5 of the CSIP, which was the governance part of the CSIP. We talked about the Workforce Development and Rural Healthcare Initiative. That's been accomplished. We now have an OMC student-based or school-based health clinic on board, which very few school districts can say that they have that. And we started talking about capital projects, update and planning, and new initiatives. So the capital projects review, put together a 10-year roof maintenance plan, which you have in your packet this evening. We put together a transportation purchase plan, talked about playground equipment, they've been completed. Update on the Tuck Point project, that's been completed. So we've accomplished a lot when it comes to capital project. Other thing we talked about is the dual degree program, and that's not off the table yet. We actually have a meeting Monday morning with Dr. Lancaster, Dennis Lancaster from Missouri State West Plains, and Marty, and high school counselor Sharon Patton, and several other reps from Missouri State West Plains to talk about what we need to do to get that in place by next year. Because essentially, you know, a high school junior can basically enroll in Missouri State West Plains and start going to school over there, all right? And they can, in 2 years, have their associate's degree. By the time they graduate from high school, they can go to Willow Springs High School, get their high school diploma, and then they can go to Missouri State West Plains and get their associate's degree and graduate as well. So as an 18-year-old, you got an associate's degree, they can have their bachelor's degree by the age of 20. All right, I think it's a really good program. I think we have potential for kids that would benefit from that. I'm not saying it's going to be a large number of kids, because essentially they're giving up their high school life to do it. But we have kids, I believe, who would love to do that, to just move forward more quickly. We already started externships. We had a group from the high school to go OMC. I know Dr. Spencer's looking at some folks that are going to Coastal Energy, I believe, or Jasper. So we're not kids, but teachers. So we have teachers who are doing that right now. We've received a grant from DESE to pay for stipends and for the time away from class to do that. And last year we were talking about a salary schedule committee. We had that. Not sure I'm going to use the salary schedule committee again this year, but it was an opportunity to get input from staff in terms of what they believe to be important. Then we had a planning session in March of 19, just 6 months ago. That's where we started rolling out the balanced scorecard. And you saw the first version of that the other night. And if we have a few minutes this evening, depending on where we go on our facilities, I'd like to get some feedback from you. You know, on how that went. Do you like what you see? Is there anything that you want to change on it? There's just things you want to take off. There's things you want to put on. All right? But that's our first rollout of it, and so, you know, I'm kind of glad that we got to that point. You know, we just need to continue to make it look better and make sure it gives you the information you need, all right? That's what's most important. And I would like to, at some point in time, get it on our district website, although it's a very difficult document to understand, you know, because there's just a lot of pieces to it, so. We finalized our community survey because we were getting ready to go out and have the survey. We had that. We talked about what it's going to take to transition the middle school to the 7-period day. We talked about, we finalized the school protection officer. We got our clinic in place. We talked about ACT Aspire and I-80. Launch, the virtual program is put in place. You can see the number of kids this year. We have 60 kids that are taking launch classes right now. I mean, that's well, not 60 kids. There were 40-some kids. 60 was on the Career Center. But our numbers on launch are growing as well, you know. So it's good that we're giving kids opportunities that we don't have the capacity because you don't have the teachers that can teach it, so we can do it through virtual program through launch. And then we talked about middle school baseball and softball. And streaming board meetings, and we are streaming board meetings as we speak. So in the interest of transparency, we've accomplished that as well. So what are we doing this evening? I want to talk a lot about RFP for energy performance contracting. And we've had several conversations about that in the last few months. I want to be able to have just an open conversation with the board about what you believe this is, and what you believe this will do for us, and if you have concerns, share those so we can talk about those this evening. Board member refresher training, I already talked about that, review community survey results if we get to it. My performance goals, again, if we get to it, I would like to make sure that I'm going the direction that this board wants me to go, and that I am doing those things that you expect me to do, okay? And so we might have a brief conversation about that, maybe review what I've done, and see if there's anything different you want me to do on that. And of course, these two are going to be interconnected. The capital projects and the RFP, they're like a lot of moving parts. So I want to talk about those together. And if we have time, again, future considerations. All right, facility priorities. You have a number of facility priorities, and as I go through these, I would like for you to share with me if I'm missing anything. Because to me, these are the ones that I've identified since I've been here, and we've had conversations about as far as being the major priorities for the Willow Springs School District. We have an aging middle school. Our middle school is 95 years old. I will tell you, albeit it's very well maintained, very functional as a school. And so it's not like we have a school that's about ready to be condemned and fall down. It's very conducive to an educational environment. But it is a 95-year-old building. And so as a board, just kind of think about where we're going to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 25 years from now. And at what point in time will that building possibly no longer be functional? And so we need to kind of think about that in terms of long-range planning. And do we want to do something to kind of correct that? Keep in mind the fact that we have it connected to the high school. That poses some logistical issues, as you might imagine, all right? So that nothing we can't overcome, but to do that, you're going to have to get some outside help to come in and help us plan it. Get some facilities planner and architects involved in what that looks like and what some options might be. Need for a second FEMA shelter. We're already applying for that right now. We received approval from FEMA to apply for a second shelter. I'm working with Jessica Pollock today. As a matter of fact, she emailed me. We have a board meeting next week, special board meeting at 6 o'clock for the purpose of approving an architect from that RFP. I've received one thus far. It's Integrity, but it's not this Integrity. It's an architectural firm out of Raleigh. And so we're kind of gathering some different architectural firms. I'll bring those to the board. The purpose of selecting that architect is for the purpose of designing a FEMA shelter and anything else that we ask that architect to design with it. All right, and I'm keep that in mind because I'm going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. Another need for additional gym space and a weight room, and that is a need. Right now we have Mumford, and we have the old gymnasium, and we have the elementary cafeteria, which really is not functional as a gymnasium at all. You know, and so we really need to look at the need for additional practice space, and/or right now we have basically one gym that we can host competition in, right? And so maybe we can do something different with the FEMA shelter to be able to accommodate other games that we can't do currently because of lack of space. The other issue is the weight room. Have all of you seen the weight room? Do you know where the weight room's at? It's not the safest environment in the world, all right? And I'm not saying we need the Taj Mahal of weight rooms, but I am concerned that it's not a very safe place to be lifting weights a lot, all right? And so I think that there's something else that we can probably do with that I want to visit with the board as well. Additional parking is always a concern. We've talked about that before. The only way around that, we're landlocked, is we're going to have to purchase property and raise the homes, raise the buildings, and create more space for parking facilities. All right. So these are the ones that I've identified. Is there any others that I'm not thinking of that you can think of? As far as high priority needs, as far as facilities are concerned.
When you talk about the need for additional gym space, do you know in like our conference, how many other schools have a second gym that they can host competitions, like middle
Do you know,
school?
Coach?
Every school in the conference but Willow
All of
Springs
us,
has a middle school gym where they can play middle school games.
and every school that's not in our conference.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a lot.
That's what
That's a lot of schools.
The difference in those schools are they're not playing football, a lot of the, like the Hills and the Seymours and those people, and their junior high basketball schedule is earlier. So they, you know, when their high school season really gets going, a lot of times their junior high is finished. So that makes a big difference. But
Yeah, we
every
can't-
school in the conference has.
See, we kind of have that right now, except if we start now, we're done by Christmas on our
Right.
middle school stuff. And that's a lot of ball games in a short amount of time, you know, but yeah, I mean, right now it's crunch time because we're sharing basically one gym. So the need for additional practice space and, you know, I think when we moved our practices to after school, it caused more of an issue with that, you know, and so, you know, I agree. I think we need to look at trying to figure out how to get more gym space or practice space on our campus, you know, try to figure out how to do that. I have an idea, and I'll share that with you in just a few minutes. Anything else that you can think of?
Has there been any discussion about any additional band and music?
I haven't heard any from the band people. I have heard a person in the communities come to me and said that it'd be nice if we were able to design a place for the band other than the gym, and then use that location as maybe relocating the weight room or something like that. Which might be a
Performing Arts
possibility.
Center.
What's that?
Per
Well, I wouldn't go so,
Performing Arts
well,
Center.
now, hold on just a second. Now, you're talking the AVA plan, all right?
This is the AVA plan.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been to Ava's Performing Arts Center, and it's a beautiful building. It's a FEMA shelter that they designed into a performing arts center, and it's just a regular auditorium, beautiful facility. That's a lot of money, you know, for us, and I've got an idea on what we can do for gym space and weight room, but if you look at a full-fledged performing arts center, yeah, that's out there, man. That we might want to start talking about that other issue, the B word, so. So anyway, I mean, but they do, they have a beautiful facility, and they have the resources to get her done, and that's great. And it makes sense, especially on the FEMA side, if you're gonna try to get a FEMA shelter, you need to get more than just a building. I mean, you need to make it multi-usable. It's gotta do more than just, you know, be there for a tornado, you know, I think we need to do something more with it. Anything else that you can think of? But it is a beautiful center, I can tell you, it is. All right, let's talk about the RFQ from Integrity, all right? And you have information in your packet, and I don't expect you to read it right now. You can do that and take it home with you, but I will kind of share with you. I had a long conversation with Ryan Evans today about this and walking through the entire document and options that we have available to us. And really, there are a number of options. There's a number of options from do nothing, that's an option, to, well, I'll just walk through them here. Options, take no action, do nothing. That's one. We can talk about this evening, and as a board, you can decide, okay, I get it about the lighting and all that, but I think right now, we just really don't want to mess with it for whatever reason. Let's just not do anything at all. Forget the lighting, forget everything. That's an option, all right? But that's not the option I would recommend we do, all right? But that is an option nonetheless, all right? Complete only the lighting project and not the investment grade audit. That's an option. You can come away this evening and say, well, okay, I get it. We can save like $50,000 to $60,000 a year in utility costs and maintenance costs by changing all of our lights out, and that's free money. We take that money and stash it in our accounts, we're good to go. You know, we can use that for other things, all right? So that is an option, and we can say, forget the IGA, the investment grade audit, let's move on. And I can recommend that. That's not my strongest recommendation, because I would recommend it only because we're still realizing savings, and that's a good thing, right? I think anytime that we're more efficient with our resources, that's a positive thing for our community, for our patrons, all right? That's not, however, the strongest option. The other option is to approve a professional development contract with Integrity for an investment grade audit. We received one RFQ from Integrity, but that doesn't surprise me because we've been involved with them every step of the way, all right? The IGA will allow them to have their engineers work with us. And I would recommend us being a subcommittee of the board and myself to meet with them and share with them priorities moving forward. Because we want them to look at all the different options that are available to us. Because at the end of the day, when they complete that, it's going to take like 90 days. So it's going to run us up to about the 1st of March-ish. So when they complete that, they'll come back to us with options, and they'll say, you can do this, and this, and this. These are the savings you'll have, this is the leverage you have, and here's the payback, all right? And then the board can really look at it and determine, okay, long range, we can do this now, all right? And really not tax our budget, and then in the future, maybe we need to look at something a little more permanent. If we decided to go to a bond issue or something like that. The bond issue is not time sensitive, all right? It doesn't have to happen right away, okay? We have a general election next November. I would recommend we not do a bond issue. I think we need to wait until we do the following one, but it may be a year from April, if the board decides to do that. That's the board's decision, but I'm saying you need more information, because you're not there yet. And the investment grade audit will give you that information. It will tell you what the best options are for this board, for this school district moving forward. All right, in terms of dollars and cents, the cost benefit analysis, and the different options available. Okay, here's what's interesting. I found this out today. In the state of Missouri, unlike Kansas, you can't do this in Kansas. In Missouri, they allow you to do this. Non-energy related projects may be rolled into energy performing contracting. All right? Why is that important to us? Well, we've got some roof maintenance projects that are coming up down the road, about $500,000 worth in the next 2 years, all right, 2 to 3 years. In Missouri, you can take an energy performance contract, like lighting, and the savings that we have, you can leverage those dollars and do a non-energy related project bundled with it. So we could replace 2 of our roofs, right, and use the savings from the lighting to pay for the cost of those roofs over time. Nothing more out of our budget. We don't have to dig in our coffers, all right? We are creating the savings to pay for our roofs, all right? It's kind of a good deal, only in Missouri, okay? That's important because let's talk about FEMA, all right? Now, I'm not saying we're going to get funded for a FEMA shelter. I am saying that, we have a chance like anyone else. You can still got to go through the application process, but if we get notification come out March that, hey, you've been approved for funding for a FEMA building, I think it would be short-sighted of us not to look at other options that we can provide within that FEMA building that will meet our priorities. For instance, making it a little bit larger so that we can accommodate a gymnasium practice space and/or competition. I've done something comparable with that in a prior district. It's not a huge, it's not a 2,000-seat gymnasium we're talking about here. We're talking about making it larger, and we actually had one where you can bring in aluminum seating on wheels. You just make it portable. Use it for practice space, and then wheel out the stuff when you don't need it, reel in the seats when you need it. It's very easy to do, and you can capture that space. And or weight room, or weight conditioning room. If we do that, we could leverage our roofs using this, not have to put that in our capital funding, take those dollars and pay for the additional to do here what we would like to do as far as gymnasium and or a weight training facility, or the other way around. When I visited with Ryan, I'm like, okay, can we do it? What about if we went this direction? What about if we decided to go ahead and do this? Then can we take the portion of the FEMA, say for gymnasium or weight room, and roll that into energy performance contracting? He said, well, that's really unusual. He said, it has been done and it can be done, but it really muddies the waters, because then you're talking federal dollars merged with energy performance contracting, right? Which gets really muddy really quick. So the cleanest way to do it would be to go ahead and maybe take a couple of our big projects we know we have to do, roll it into energy performance contracting, pay for them with the savings, and then free up some dollars to take care of a couple of our priorities. Any questions on that? I mean, when he told me that today, I'm like, wow, that's pretty amazing. That we are, and he said the reason they allowed them to do that is because there are school districts in the state of Missouri who simply are cash strapped, and they have facilities that they need help with. They can't pass a bond issue. They don't have the resources to pass a bond issue. They don't have capital dollars. The only way they can do it is to find some money here to pay for the things they got to get done. And so the state of Missouri allows it.
Is there a limit to the percentage of the total being non-energy?
15.
Well, the whole project has to be paid off in 15 years.
Right.
But now, if you're talking about a bond issue, our bonding capacity is $15 million.
You can take your savings, basically, from the electrical piece and multiply times 15 years, and you can essentially borrow that money and then do whatever you want to with it. I mean, that's the dumbed-down version of the whole thing.
And that might be, and that's just, $500,000 for roof projects. There's nothing that says you couldn't do that as well as that and tie it both to this. He said that's the part about the IGA that we don't know. We don't know the options, we don't know the numbers, and until we know the numbers, we don't know as a board which direction to go. we could go as much as $1 million and have that lighting, as long as you get it paid off in 15 years, and have that lighting savings pay for it.
We'd have to save more than $65,000 a year on lighting.
Well, you know, you're doing the math, okay? I'm not doing the math right now, but that's up to the IGA people to do that. But they can tell you how far we can go in terms of total dollars to stay under that 15-year limit. Or he even shared that you can do the 15, and then, you know, but if you need more, then you could actually go out and what do you say, I think, you can't borrow any more on it, but you would only have to pay for 2 years out of your pocket, basically. So if you needed 17 years or whatever. But in this case, I would say, whatever we decide to do, if we decide to roll something into it, we can't go any further than 15. So what can we do in 15 years? That's a long payoff. But it's not coming out of our budget, it's coming out of the savings just because we're changing the lighting. Well, the other thing to look at is what about our HVAC equipment? See, we'll get more savings if we try to upgrade them at the same time. That's what the IGA can tell us. It may not just be lighting, it could be doing some things different with our HVAC, which give us more savings that we can leverage to do our roofing projects and other things. It just has to be done in 15 years. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, it gives us options, it really gives us options, right? And we can get a lot of our priorities taken care of without really strapping our budget a lot, right? Just, our lighting's a big deal here, it's a huge deal. Because it'll save us a lot of money on the front end, but once we do it, if we don't do anything in conjunction with it, then we've lost that opportunity. Because once it's done, you know, and then we don't have anything else to leverage against it. So it's kind of a big deal for us as far as that goes. Approximate cost of IGA will be rolling whatever projects are decided upon. I know we've been tossing 50,000 around pretty haphazardly. I talked to him today, he said, no, he said actually it's probably going to be close to about 30. And he's going to have his guys start working on a cost. He's going to try to give me a cost estimate before the meeting, but I haven't received anything from him. But what happens is that doesn't come out of our pocket. The only time that's going to come out of our pocket is if we decide to do nothing. If we decide to do the IGA, 90 days later, we have the IGA, we get all the information, and then we come back and say, forget it, we're not going to do it, we're not going to change our life, we're going to do it. Well, then we'll have to stand the cost of the IGA. I would like to think we've had enough conversations that at the very least we're looking at our lighting. At the very least, I think the board's on board to say, we got to do our lighting, because it makes no sense not to, right? So that's kind of where I'm thinking we're at. I mean, we haven't had any official up-down votes, but just listening to conversations, I get the impression that we're at the point that we know we got to do that. It's just where do we go from here?
I don't know what the lights look like in the rest of the district, but, you know, our maintenance guys could spend 2 hours in here fixing these.
They could.
You know, so I mean,
Yeah. Although I did have a demonstration from DNA on the proper way to convert a T4 to a T8 to a LED. That's we were up on the highest row of the scaffolding in Wagner's, and he had one done in about 2.5 minutes.
Put your light in your hands, climb.
I did. I was in my suit, climbed up the scaffold, and he said, "Get on, let me show you." He said, "This took me like 4.5 minutes." I'm like, So now Dean's changing all the lights out. Well, not all of them, because those in the main area aren't.
Exactly the same.
They are the same.
They're exactly the same. The wiring is exactly the same.
Interesting. Well, and we have like 2,500 fixtures or something like that. So I am concerned that Mike Beatty would be doing that for a long time. So there's another reason why we need.
3.5 years.
But if you add it all up. But the reality of it is there's a reason we need that. Because it gives us kind of a roadmap for the future and numbers and everything else.
Have they said how much that piece will?
The IGA, he told me, he said probably about 30,000. He's gonna give me a price.
To do the lights.
Oh, the light was a $165,000 project. Yeah. Saving us about $55,000, I think, in operating costs, about $8,000 in maintenance. So we're gonna be saving about $60-some thousand a year for our budget just by changing out lights. You know, even if you do nothing else. If you walk away and say, we're not interested in doing the IGA, let's just do the lights. That's $65,000 more in our budget every year, just by changing the lights, you know? And we can get that done anytime, we can get that in 2 or 3 months. You know, so that's a pretty big deal.
Okay, so one more time, what does the IGA, what is that gonna, if we do decide to do that, what is that gonna get us? They're going to look at the HVAC again.
Yes, they'll look at everything.
Like,
They
what
will
does
look
that
at-
mean, everything?
They will look at everything. They will look at our HVAC, they will look at our windows, they will look at solar panels. Yeah, I don't know if they've got a piece that's really strong on solar heating. I'm not saying we're gonna go that direction, but they will give some cost analysis if we wanna go solar. They'll look obviously at our lighting, and then it will give them what other alternative projects that might be outside that scope that we want to leverage. So we might say, well, I'll tell you what, that's all good, do that, but we also want to leverage our roofing projects too. You know, put that in there, and we want to know how far we can go for the lighting change we're making, or let us know if we do the lighting and some HVAC, because part of it might be, we at one point in time, there seemed to be interest on the board about completely redesigning the HVAC system at the middle school, all right? That's a big deal, because you're talking about going from a one-pipe system to internal controls, you know, so we're gutting what we have, right? We're talking about a very expensive project to do that. The question then becomes, are we going to spend $300,000 or $400,000 on that, right? If we're looking at doing something different with the middle school down the road. You understand what I mean? You know, because it makes no sense. If we decide to do that at the middle school, you've made a 15 to 20 year commitment, at least, all right, as a board. So you kind of get the impression, long range planning, right? That decision is a 20-year decision for the middle school. You've locked them in for 20 years because it makes no sense to do anything else with that middle school as long as you just replace their HVAC system completely. All right? So that's kind of where all this is going, which is why we need more information come about March or April so we can make the decisions that we need to make as a board. Okay? And it may be, well, forget the middle school, let's focus on upgrading our other HVAC units that are aging. And he gave us some numbers on what those are. If we did that and became more efficient there, that would give us more energy savings, which would allow us to do more projects. So, and then what we don't know the numbers.
Right.
So in order to borrow the money, we have to have an investment grade audit that says you're gonna save this much money. You can't just, I can't just say that, Bill can't just say we're gonna save $65,000. Someone has to go, I looked at that HVAC, it's gonna last 5 more years, then you're gonna have to spend X number of dollars.
That's right.
That's what it amounts to.
Correct. And that's information we don't have, nor is it information we can get. We need people who are skilled who can come out and do that. That's why we'll sit down with engineers and they will come out. If you look in your sheet here, I think it's in the, maybe, let me look here. I think it's the sheet that,
Last
if
leg,
you go to page 41, by the way. What's that?
the
the-
middle school.
No, it's not on its last leg. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, the board just replaced the boiler
Okay,
3 years ago. You know, the boiler's relatively new. You guys probably remember if you were on the board approving that expenditure. The issue isn't that it's not working, it's functioning exactly as it was designed to function 50 years ago. Okay? That's the problem. It's not a very efficient system. It's a single pipe system. What that means is, right about now is not so bad, but when you get into about September and you're like cold in the morning but hot in the afternoon, you're going to be really hot in the afternoon because you may be warm in the morning, but you're not going to call for AC at 1 o'clock because it doesn't work that way. It takes a period of time to cool that water down so that then you can call for AC. You get rid of that, you put internal controls and units in each classroom, and you said, what do you want to call variance?
right.
Yeah, because you can't let, like, no disrespect for anybody, let it run the classroom, but they don't need to have like a 10 or 15 temperature variance when class A were made a classroom B. So you say, somewhere between 69 and 72, that's all you get.
Right,
So you may be uncomfortable at 69, but that's all you're gonna get.
right.
You know, so, I mean, you control it that way, and it's just more efficient. It's just a lot more efficient system than a single pipe system.
Right.
But it's still working. I mean, we're getting heat, and we're getting AC, but we can't turn it on a dime.
And the other issue is that the third floor is always gonna be warmer than the basement.
Because that's basic physical science.
That's-
Heat rises.
You hit on something just a minute ago when you said something about the solar deal. I'm just gonna pass this around. You guys can see what they did to the Batesville School District with solar panels.
I was wondering,
Just- Yeah.
we've got that picture.
No, we didn't put that.
I don't think you got that picture in there.
Yeah, but it's not like nice like this picture.
So, solar, and I will tell you,
If we spend 30,000, will like they print us all out a nice book like this?
yeah, they only gave me 3. Maybe I should have just said, I said, if you want the deal right, I need 4 more books.
Exactly.
No, I think
That's pretty cool.
the solar,
Yeah.
we did that in
Nice ways
Salina.
and-
When we passed the bond issue in Salina, one of the new buildings we did was all solar. And it's really interesting watching them do that. It's that is the most efficient energy source there is now, today, is solar energy. That's just the way to go. Very costly too on the front end, but on the back end, it saves you a ton of money. It does, it's really very efficient.
But is there not, since, solar's big and stuff, and it's big and hip and new, are there not,
We got breaks, I think.
like grants or, federal
Yeah,
money?
I think there, if I remember correctly, I think there's some federal breaks, if you will. They'll give you discounts for using solar energy.
I think most of them ended last year.
What's that?
I think many of them ended last
I
year.
thought it
Oh,
was
they
supposed
did?
to be.
Okay. Because they were really trying to get people to go that way,
Right.
you know, and I thought there were, but you think they cut them all out?
Most of them.
Okay. But, but understand with the IGA, they'll give you a solar option. You'll have that. Okay, that'll be another option for you. Because that's what, he was very honest, he said, solar's what we do. He said, we do all the lighting stuff and everything else, but solar's kind of their wheelhouse. And they've done a lot of solar projects, you know. So they'll give us a solar option as well, if we want to do that. But again, if we're going to do solar, you guys still got a decision to make. If we put solar on top of that junior high, we're not going anywhere for a while. You know, if we got solar panels on any of our roofs, we're committed to it. So that's why this is kind of an important decision for the board to make. Not tonight necessarily. The only decision over that tonight is you want to do that, you know, just to get us down the road. The bigger decision is going to be March or April. But by then, if you do that, you'll have the information in front of you, which will help you make that decision. All right? So what happens if the board decides to approve a professional development agreement for IGA? The first steps, well, as I said, we appoint a subcommittee of the board, including myself, to meet with engineers. He said we would start that next week. We would start that very, very quickly. And he said 60 days would be pushing it. It's probably going to be very, you know, if you want a very detailed report, it's going to be 90 days. And they'll come out to the district, they will talk to folks. If you look on that sheet that Farrell has open with the chart, there's 3 different phases. One's an inventory phase, then a solutions phase, then a reporting phase. In the inventory phase, they're just going to come out and they will count every single unit we have. They will look at every single unit we have. They'll talk a lot with Mike Beatty, they'll visit with our subcommittee and decide what our priorities are. The big first part of that is collecting information. They have to map the district. They need to know what energy sources we have. Once they do that, then they'll start putting that together and creating solutions for us. And you can see how much time it takes to do that. So it's every bit about 12 weeks to get there. You know, so that takes us to about, end of March? So,
Are we gonna make sure that they look at every building?
every building.
Every building, this
Every
one,
building, every building.
yours?
Every building in the
every
district,
building.
every building in the
Okay.
district. They look at everything.
I know when we did our roofing plan, we didn't capture every building.
No, we captured the main,
The main building.
the main buildings, yeah, that's a good point. Fair, touche. But yeah, they will do every building. Approximately 90 days to complete the IGA, about the same time as the FEMA grant, right? So kind of look at the timing. If we find out about the FEMA grant about April, we find out about this about April, then that's just another piece of information you have. If we find out we're funded at FEMA in April, then you've got that in your back pocket, and you're looking at this as well, gives you another opportunity to make more decisions. Because you know if you got money for a FEMA grant, then we can start rolling some other things into it, knowing that we can do something with this now. Okay, and then all this will assist in the planning process to kind of move us forward. So, any questions about just the PDA part of it? Just the RFP, the RFQ, what we're asking to do this evening, anything at all? I mean, I know I talked about long-range planning, but there's not going to be a lot of long-range planning until we get the IGA. I mean, that will help us in terms of doing some of those things. But any questions?
Yes, and I hate to keep on going back to all of this, but what does PDA stand for?
Okay, PDA is a professional development agreement.
Okay.
Not what it meant when you were in high school, was it?
That's ISS.
Okay, and then, what was the
Get you
other acronym
ISS,
you
huh?
said? And it was,
IGA is an investment grade audit.
not that one, it was the RFG.
RFQ is a request for qualifications.
Say it again?
Request for qualifications.
Okay. Okay.
Any questions at all? Any comments? Feedback? I mean, where are you thinking individually we should go, if you have an individual opinion about it?
If we're going to move forward with a long-term plan of any importance, we need an IGA.
Does everyone agree with that?
You know, I think 30,000, yes, it is expensive, but I am by no means, qualified or smart enough to go look through every building and say, yeah, they're right or they're wrong. Someone needs to know what they're doing.
When they come out, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, because things are aging and you need to have a plan. And there's, as you've already pointed out, there's the roof plan, there's the bus plan. There needs to be a direction.
Yeah. And we don't have that, and I think the other option that we need to look at as well with the IGA, And I think that the point of time to do that will be after we get the results back and after the board is pretty clear on what they want to do. Because if you're wanting to really look at something long-term, as in a bond issue at some point in time or future, we really need to hire as a facilities consultant to come out and give us some options and look at our facilities. And, you know, if they say, well, you've got a 95-year-old middle school, all right, this is the lifespan of that, and on the surface of it, none of us are architects, but they can tell us what options we could have to address that issue. You know, whether it means building a new building, you know, and sometimes they'll even come out and give you, well, you need to change your grade configurations and do different things internally to address some of the concerns you have as well. But they'll give you options on your facilities, much like Integrity can give us options on performance-based contracting for energy. So they can give us options that will help us do some planning. Because if and when we ever do have that, go to the board, it's going to be extreme, or go to the community, the bond issue, it's going to be extremely important that we share with them the rationale for doing so. You know, we have to help our community and our patrons understand the needs of our school district. All right, that's extremely important, that we communicate that and communicate it well. And so that's going to be a big part of it. But we're not there right now. We're just not there. We need more time, and we need more information. And on the positive side, we're really in a good position. I mean, we're in a really good position because we found a need that we can leverage to get some things done, that we don't have to necessarily dip into our budget to make it happen. So that's a good thing. It's a really good thing. Anything else that you want to talk about as far as this is concerned?
Yes, and this might be off in the weeds, this might be for a whole nother night, but on like a bond issue, do you, if we ran a bond issue in a couple, 5 years, do you set the time limit that we can, pay it off? Or
Yeah.
maybe we just need an educational lesson in like a bond issue?
And that's fine. There's bond consultants who will come out and help you with that.
Okay.
And what you do is that, and when you run a bond issue, first you have to decide how much you need.
Well, let's just say for fun that we just, spent the whole 15 million. We just built buildings everywhere. Just for fun.
What they will do then is
Hypothetical.
no, they will say for a tax rate of this much, because it's
Okay.
going to come down to how much of a tax burden does it place on the taxpayers. So they'll come out and they'll do analysis and they'll say if you create this much of a tax levy, it will generate that much money that can be paid off in X amount of years, and this is what it's going to do to your local taxpayer. You know, and that's where you get into things like for somebody who owns the value of a $100,000 home, it will increase your taxes $4.88 a month or something like that. But we can make it as short a time period or as long as time period we want. We can do it in 15 years, we can make it 25 years.
Yeah,
The longer you make it, the easier it is on our taxpayers, but the longer it's going to take to pay the thing off too,
right.
you know? And I would have to verse myself more in terms of the limits, the time limits in Missouri versus, say, Kansas, and I can find that out. I know the one we passed in Salina was 15-year payoff, you know? And we were able to do it. I mean, people voted for it, and then it's only taken 15 years to pay it off. That's a $110 million bond issue. That's a huge one, you know? And so it really depends on doing it in a way that doesn't overburden our taxpayers. And that just depends on how far out you want to go.
Okay.
And a bond consultant can come in and help you with that. They'll help you, give you all the dynamics on, if you go this long out, it's going to do this to the average taxpayer. And this is the levy you're going to need to make it happen. You know, and the higher the levy, obviously, I mean, to do it in a shorter time, you got to have a higher levy.
Right.
The higher the levy, the more of a burden on our taxpayers. And so then you got to kind of look at what can we sell? You know, I mean, what can we sell to the taxpayers as affordable? You know, and so that's important. So all that goes into the board making a decision, not only to have one, but doing it in such a way that our people can afford to pay it off. But we're not paying it off for 50 years, you know?
Right.
We want to find that happy medium in there somewhere.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
affordable, but it's not taking forever to get done,
Right.
so.
But it has to be based on the needs of the district.
That's right.
Not the desire of the district.
Yeah, and some districts run tax rate, elections and some run bond elections. You know, it just depends on what your need is. If your need is for operating cash, then you need to do a tax rate election. You know, if it's for facilities, then you need to do a bond issue. All right, they're two different things. You don't do it at the same time.
Right.
It's one or the other.
Because it is a bond issue you will, pay off the debt, and then once the debt has been paid, then it is your taxes will go back down?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. That is correct.
Like, there's not gonna be some kind of sunshine, sunset
Like this will be a
clause.
tax like forever and ever and ever?
Right.
No, once
No.
you pay it off, the tax goes away.
Tax goes away, okay. Okay.
And then the other option is if you're very fortunate, which we want to slide that, if you run a bond issue and you pass it for, $15 million. And then you go plan and you're cost effective with your construction, and your construction comes in at 13 million, right? You came in under budget, then you got $2 million you can play with. But I say play with it, I don't say play with it in terms of let's go out and buy stuff. I'm saying play with it in terms of using that to help offset the payments to help bring back the tax levy down and help our taxpayers. You know what I mean? If you don't need it, there's no sense in spending it,
Right.
all right? So you put it back in and use it to pay off your debt so that our tax levy will go down. And so there's a value to being cost effective in construction. I mean, if you can get in under budget, that's a good thing for our taxpayers.
Right.
Because we can use that money to leverage the tax rate and get them back down, so help them out. So it's kind of being good stewards, so. All right, questions? All right, so I think the direction to go now would be to decide if we want to do the IGA. I don't think we need to take action right now, we can go to the action item part of it when we get to that point, just do that motion then. And that's kind of the direction that we have right now, so. Any other questions at all about that? Anything about facilities, anything else?
No, but okay, no. Well, we really haven't talked about the, 120-year-old gym out in the middle of our, campus.
Okay, what would you like to talk about?
Well, I mean, we talk about the middle school, and it's 95 years old, but then we got that gym, that rock gym out in the middle. I mean, how much longer is it gonna live?
Yeah, it's a rock
Survive.
gym, probably.
WPA.
Yeah, exactly, I think it's not gonna go anywhere anytime soon.
Okay.
No, that actually could be a tornado shelter, I think, I'm not completely sure, but that's pretty
CCC.
solid. Was it CCC? So it is back in the 30s, 33, 34, something like that. Yeah, it's not as old as you thought.
What was I thinking? But, yeah, so because we were talking about the, middle school, but then that building's really old. I mean, I'm not saying tear it down, but has anyone been inside and like looked at the condition? I mean,
Dean has. Dean made doggone sure I knew about it too.
It was appalled.
Yeah, Dean's used the
It needs
bathroom there.
work.
Yeah, it does. But a lot of the work it needs is cosmetic.
It is in fact
It just needs to be
cosmetic.
cleaned up.
I agree.
So, structurally though, it's sound.
Oh, yeah, it's strong. It's
Okay.
not gonna go anywhere soon. I think, and I also think, and plus it's not as old as our middle school. And it's built more sturdy than our middle school.
Okay.
But I also think too that, what would you do? Just tear it down? Did you just have?
Still functions as a practice facility, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
works
gets
great.
a lot of play. As a matter of fact, I
Right.
understand we have eight periods a day in
Yeah.
that building.
Yeah.
So it gets used as heavily,
Yeah.
well, it is in effect our middle school gymnasium. And that's what it
It's
is,
used
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, a lot of times you have a weight class, don't
You
you?
have a high school
The
weight class
and
up
you have a
there,
class down
and you
there.
may have two
multiple
classes
classes,
downstairs.
Yeah.
It doesn't lend itself to public use for auditoriums and games and that kind of stuff. Doesn't lend itself because of its design. But, the old building's in good shape, it just
Yeah.
needs some attention that hasn't gotten any lately.
I would suggest that if we do the
This
IGA,
century.
and then we come back and you got options, and the board based on those options says, okay, we want to do option 6, this is what we want to do. And we have that, we get it, and we decide what that is. At that point, then, a part of option 6 is we want to really look into a long-term plan as far as doing a bond issue, because we know that we've got facilities needs. At that point, I would recommend that we bring in a consultant and have them do a complete thorough study of all of our facilities, and come back to the board with suggestions in terms of what our greatest facilities needs are. And options, they'll give us solutions, that they say, we suggest that you do this and this and this first, and that will cost you this much money.
And then they'll look at how much ground we have and what ground we have and where we can build things.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll,
Yeah. Now, they may not give you a cost estimate, that's when we gotta bring an architect in. They'll tell, these are your best options, so we say, okay, we wanna do this option, so then we can bring an architect in and say, give us some design estimates. If we're wanting to, build a new middle school, out in another, how much are we talking about here? And so then they'll talk to teachers, they'll talk to principals, here's what kind of building you need and all this, and they'll come back with a number. And they'll say, based on what you want to accomplish, it's gonna be this much money, which will give you direction in terms of a bond issue and how far you need to go. You know, and we can only go 15 million. You know, now we ought to be able to go more after our evaluation goes up, but at this point, it's 15 million is the biggest bond issue we can run. But you can build a middle school for less than 15 million, so it's doable, if that's what you decide to do. You know, so we just need to determine what that is. But I think first things first, I think we have an opportunity to do something different and take care of our budget dollars, you know, with our lighting, and then I think give the board some other options moving forward.
Right.
So, okay? Clear? We good?
I'd just like to note that, you know, we buy a bus every year so that our bus fleet remains current. And we have a 10-year plan with our roofs to make sure our roofs don't leak. So we do repairs to them. We should have the same kind of thoughtful process for our main facilities, our buildings. And we haven't done anything in 50 years, 60 years?
Well, we did the addition. We did the addition at the high school,
The addition,
which you will pay that
which
off
is how
right now.
many classrooms?
What are you getting at, Dean? I'm not sure I quite
No,
follow.
I just think that we need to have a long-term thoughtful process that goes beyond just buses and roofs.
And goes towards what? I'm
The facilities that we're talking about.
talking about updating facilities or building facilities or?
Both of those
Okay,
things.
all right. Just a long-term plan then?
Just a long-term
Okay,
plan.
all right.
Yeah,
That goes beyond 10 years. I mean, long-term, what are we gonna do 40 years from now? What are we gonna have for a school?
And they do have long-term facility plans. I mean, again, if you do a financial consult or a facilities consult, they'll come out and they will give you a long-term facilities plan, a roadmap, so to speak. So then we'll have a roadmap on our roofs, we'll have a roadmap on our HVAC and our energy items, and we'll have a roadmap on our facilities. And so that probably will give the board, I mean, that will give this board and future boards a lot of information that will help them make decisions 10, 15 years down the road. So that's the value of doing an IGA. That's the value of getting a facilities plan in place as well. Because boards change, you know, and so you want to make sure that future boards have information that they need to make decisions as well. So, okay, questions? All right, if not, I'm just going to kind of roll down through a number of the other ideas. Getting off a little bit of the facilities conversation. The other evening, we had a presentation, and you had the booklet I gave you on the data. And we had the first rollout of the balanced scorecard, all right? And I just some thoughts from all of you, just feedback, 5-10 minutes, not very long. But give me your thoughts on that. I mean, how was it? Did you like it? Did it provide information that was helpful to you? Give me some information on that. I think I just had the one. I'll give this to one of y'all, and then you guys, I can get you another one that you guys can kind of, if you want to look at that and share it or whatever, then I'll get you another one made up. Because I got it off. Thoughts, questions? What about the balanced scorecard?
I like the balanced scorecard, and I like the direction we're taking on it. It is difficult, to score those things that come in at 3 different time periods. So it's hard to, where you're going on a curve, it's hard to say we're at 25%, that puts us exactly where we want to be, because the goal is 100%. I think that makes it awkward because
Yeah.
some of those categories are really scored differently than others, so it makes it harder to grasp.
And you're right, and some of that data was not meant to be longitudinal data. It wasn't meant to be trend data, but we're using it as trend data, but it shouldn't be used as trend data. I will be the first to tell you, I don't believe iRady is good trend data.
It is not.
It is not good trend data.
It is not.
iRady, the purpose of that program is to help teachers inform instruction. That's the purpose of
And
it.
it looks like it does a good job of that.
Yeah, but it's not gonna help us say, okay, this time last year we were here, and this time this year we're here. It just doesn't, that's not accurate. That's just not the information we need. So I don't think iRady is a good tool. MAP can be, but it's a state assessment, so we're stuck to that.
Well, if they quit changing it, it would be.
Then we can have some long-term data on that as well.
I like the ACT.
The ACT's solid. That's
That
the best
looked
data
like
we
it was
have.
pretty good. And in
It
the
never
end,
changes.
it looked like the state was giving the ACT at the same rate we were. Despite the fact that we were under.
A little bit less than we were, but we're at what, 95%, is that what you're talking about?
We were at 90, I think, and
90, they were at
State's at 85, 82.
Okay. They were a little bit under us.
So
we
not
tried to use that as
not-
a rationale.
Not statistically. I did think the information about student transitioning in and out of the district was interesting.
Mobility rate.
The mobility rate.
Yeah.
I still want to look at how you came up with that percentage.
Yeah, and, I mean, there's a formula for it, I mean,
Is there an official
Yeah,
formula
yeah,
for it?
there is.
And is that what we used?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, you just look at total numbers of bodies in and out, and add up that number,
Right.
and then your denominators, how
Divide by
many kids.
everybody who moved?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
okay.
that'll give you.
I mean, it does make
Yeah.
sense.
And it's basically, I mean, if you talk 23, 24, 25%, that's pretty significant.
If we can, if we have a comparative. I mean,
Correct.
what is it in the state of Missouri?
Well, yeah, I mean,
In
yeah.
rural, because I really don't care what it is in Kansas City.
Yeah, I can, yeah, in rural, I mean, I think if you compared it to even rural areas in Kansas, it's much higher than anything we had in Kansas. You know, and in southwest Kansas, we had a large Hispanic population, and they were very mobile.
Yeah.
They were in and out, and in and out, and in and out, so it was very high as well. I think 23, 24% is pretty high. And so, and that's important for the board, because if you're looking at data, I mean, you gotta keep in mind that these aren't the same kids, you know? We've got kids coming to us that spend half the year someplace else, and yet we're held accountable to whatever their assessments are, you know? Or we had a kid that was doing very well here and then moves away, right? And so that mobility rate can be a big deal, it really can. It can impact our scores a lot.
But I thought Mr. Wagner said that if they're not in our district by September
30th.
15th.
That's on the map side.
Right.
That's on the state.
September 30th, then they don't
They
get
don't
counted on
count.
our map.
That is correct.
So I don't. so
All of our
I
local
would-
assessments still count.
Right, local
Right.
assessments, but I would think that that would not skew the map. If you're
The
not here
state-
by the 30th,
Yeah, the state helps. I mean,
Right.
the state helps do that, you know?
right,
So,
okay. We're-
questions?
Okay, we're like, you all done? Okay. So, my takeaway from the iReady, from that whole conversation the other night, I mean, so I guess one more time, what am I looking at on the balanced scorecard? Because it's not trend data, it's for the instructional direction
Yeah,
of the
they
teacher.
use, individually, iReady is very good for as a adaptive assessment
Right,
for a kid, that you can start them at, and then you can track that kid throughout the year, and if they're improving, if they're not improving, then you change your instruction accordingly, all right?
Right.
And every adaptive level is different for every kid, all right?
Right.
And so when you start wanting to say, okay, what percentage of our kids were tier 1 this year compared to last year, different kids, different levels, and not only that, but the standards are different, and so it's very difficult to draw large comparisons, like for large groups of kids. It's really meant to be an individual teaching tool for a child,
right.
to help a teacher.
So does it have a purpose on the balanced scorecard then?
That's a good question. I mean, we talked about that. I'm not sure it does. I mean,
That's
we'll
what-
put it down there, but I'm not sure that it's going to give you any information that's going to be usable for you.
Well, I think we've deemed that it's not
Yeah,
usable.
yeah.
So on
We might want to
this,
pull it.
so on this awesome chart that's written in like size 4 font,
Well, that's
You
because we
know.
got a lot of information. If we
Well,
pull
right.
that out of there, the font might go up a little
the
bit.
font might be 6. But,
But we still want to see the identity data.
Right,
I
right,
think maybe it's
right.
not part of this scorecard.
But that, and that's important. That's a good point, Dean, because if you want to see it, I need to know what you want to see.
but
Because-
why do I want to see it though?
Well, that's a good point.
I mean-
well, let me take that back. I take that back. I think there's a purpose for it in the same year. So if we give it like baseline, and we give it again in December, I think you need to see it. Because I think you need to see how many kids we moved from tier 2 or tier 3 to tier 1,
Okay.
you know? That way, you want to really see an actual growth. And if we see it again at the end of the year, how many kids did we move there? Because if we go from testing time 1 to testing time 2, and we're getting more kids in tier 3, we got a problem.
Right.
You know, we're not moving the kids, all right? So I
then-
think it has a
It's from
purpose.
year to year.
Yeah, yeah, it gets really
Right.
mushy when you do
Squirrely
that.
then.
And they take it 3 times, right?
They take
Yeah.
it 3 times, yes.
So then that would be like your bar graph from the other night.
Yeah, in the same year.
Right,
Right.
but in the same year.
Correct.
So if you did something like that, then it wouldn't need to be on the balanced scorecard.
No, it wouldn't have to be, except, or we could do it and keep it on the balanced scorecard and then start over the next year. You know, because we can keep it on the balanced scorecard, because we're going to report that to you 3 or 4 times a year. So as long as we keep the iReady stuff in the same year, I think it's okay. You know, but I think at the last time we give it to you, the first time we give it to you next year, we probably need to start over and do baseline again.
Okay, because, you know, for example, the iReady reading says 22%, or I'm sorry, 22%. I don't know what it says. How am I gonna know what each of the testing sessions were? Am I supposed to remember this number
Let's see
here?
it. Yeah, no. What this tells you, last year we gave it all 3 times.
And that was the
Last year,
average.
that was at 67% of the kids showed growth last year. That's what that number means. So far this year, only 22% have shown growth, but we've only given it twice,
Okay,
right?
Okay.
We want that number to go up to at least 67, because that's what we had last year showing growth. I think you can only look at each individual year.
okay.
Now, we can look, at the end of the year, we can look and say, well, last year we had 67% of the kids show growth. This year, we only had 50% of the kids show growth. Well, okay, now that, to me, that's a valid measure. Because for some reason, we're not reaching as many of the kids as we did a year ago.
Okay,
All right? You just can't compare a kid's score from August of this year to August of next year,
right,
because there's too many other factors involved.
right,
What we want to do, and the reason that's yellow is because these numbers are going to change.
okay.
So when Chris comes back and gives you an update, we're going to have taken that test again. And I would like to think that 22 becomes a higher number, and that 9% becomes a higher number, because more kids would have shown growth the second time we did it. And then more kids will show growth the third time we do it in March or April or May. So
Okay.
that number will keep going up, that's why they're yellow, but that will change,
Okay,
all right? But we can compare it at the end of the year to how we did last year, we just can't compare groups of kids. We can't compare last year's 7th graders with this year's 8th graders on where they were last year compared to where they are now, because the standards change and every kid's different. So it's just not easy to do groups of kids that way,
okay.
so.
Okay, and then on the ACT Aspire, I know that the district has given the test. Parents haven't gotten anything.
Yeah.
I would like the board, if the board would like this, to have a quick little slideshow presentation that you put together on this is what it looks like, or this is what our data shows,
Okay.
so that
What-
I know, so, because.
What I would like to do, and I would agree, I think that's fine, what I would like to do first is find my pen. No, I think what I would like to do first is, I need to check on this, did parents receive results?
No,
Have any parent received a result on the ACT Aspire, to your knowledge?
to
Yes.
my knowledge, no.
Yes, okay. That, to me, is the first thing. I think we need to, and I will tell you, I mean, we need to get that information in the hands of our parents, but we're trying to find the best way to do that, because those ACT Aspire reports are very difficult to read. And if you just send them home out of context, parents won't understand what they say. So we have to figure out a way to educate them. The best way to do that is at a parent-teacher conference, but we only have one, and we give the assessment in October to have the results back by then,
Right.
so it makes it very difficult. So we need to find, that just reminded me, we need to find a mechanism to communicate that to parents.
Okay.
Now, the other thing on the ACT Aspire is that we utilize that at the middle school and high school. Well, elementary went away from it this year. And in talking to Dr. Spencer, she may go away from it as well because of the amount of time that it takes to get it. Because it's like 3 hours, you know, it's a lot of instructional time to do that. It's almost like the regular ACT. It's like in grades 5, 7, and 8, it's the interim, it's not as long. But in 6 and 9, which is the summative, which is the big one, it takes about 3 hours or more. So she may, based on that, if she feels comfortable that she's getting the data she needs from iReady, she may go a different direction on ACT Aspire. If she does, then I think we need to reevaluate it, you know, because,
Just not even do it.
well, yeah, I mean.
Like, just like quit paying
Well,
ACT Aspire money.
yeah, is the high school using it? Is she going to, is she going to do, she likes the science, she wants to keep the science. She just doesn't want to do the full barrage of it. You know, so we need to decide if she's not going to do something different with it, because the elementary's not doing that anyway. At some point in time, it's not worth paying for it anymore,
Right,
if we're not using the data.
because.
If we don't think the data is worth the amount of time it takes to give it, then we might as well move away from it.
Right. So, I have already forgotten, but did we sign up for like a 5-year contract,
I
a
don't
1
think so. I
year,
think
like
it's
a 1 year,
it's
year after year?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
year to year.
Okay.
It's year to year. We can get out
So
of
we're
it.
not paying money and, you know, elementary's not doing it and we're just.
No, we just don't pay, we just don't pay for elementary.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But like I said, if she doesn't feel like the data, it's not that the data's not worth it, if she feels that she can get comparable data and save some testing time and more instruction, she'd rather do that.
But at the meeting the other night, we said that the ACT test is the one test that is, constant.
That's the ACT itself. This is the
Correct.
Aspire.
Right.
Right.
But by giving the Aspire, it's probably pretty in alignment with the ACT test.
Well, it is. That's the value of the ACT Aspire. When we came and talked to the board about it a year or so ago, is the predictive value of it. Because if it was me and I was a parent and I had a 7th grade kid, and they took the ACT Aspire and it's projected my kid's gonna get about an 18 on the ACT in reading, we got some work to do,
Right.
depending on where I want my kid. I may be happy with an 18. But if there's something more, we better figure it out, because there's evidently some skills that my kid's not getting.
Right.
So to me, the value of the ACT Aspire is the predictive value of where it's gonna take your kid 5 or 6 years down the road.
Well, we're certainly not getting that from iReady.
Right.
No,
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 but
no, 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 no.
the difference is with the already, you get the individual diagnostic type
Correct.
stuff.
It will tell you if you're proficient in reading right now.
And the instructional remedies for
That's right.
some of the, and assistance.
Now, it'll diagnose the issue. It will tell the teacher, you need to do this.
And it provides the teachers lessons and
Correct.
stuff like that, instructional stuff, where we don't get that with the ACT and Aspire, right?
No, it's just a snapshot. It's just a prediction
it's
on
just
what
a
they're going, if
test.
they were a
Right.
senior today or a junior today taking the assessment, that's what they're going to score
Right.
So.
on the ACT.
So does the staff not see a need for it in our school?
With the ACT Aspire?
Yes.
I
Or
think
do they
they,
think of it as one more thing for them to?
I think if it didn't take that long to administer, they probably would be okay with it. But it takes so long to administer, in some cases 3 hours total to administer, and you have to decide, is the data worth losing that much instruction time? Because they feel like they're being over-assessed anyway. I mean, you've got the MAP assessment in spring, you've got the I-rated 3 times a year, ACT is just one more assessment that we're putting on them. And so at some point, they think it's duplicative, it's repetitious, it's like, why are we doing something else when we can just do it with the I-rated and that'll give us everything.
And the already takes longer than the Aspire, the ACT to get.
I heard it's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard the ACT is a longer testing session than the I-rated.
Don't we have two versions of that though, isn't there?
Yeah, we have
They have
a
a-
summative,
yeah.
that's right, we have a summative and an interim. And the interim is grade 5, 7, and 8.
And it doesn't take as long.
No.
But didn't Dr.
I-
Spencer, didn't she say something about one of them? I thought it was the already taking like 3 days.
I thought it was the ACT
Maybe it's 3
Aspire.
class periods. I mean, I'm sure it was 3 class periods for a certain.
See, I think and I don't know for sure. I think the interims are like an hour test. So it's an hour for reading, an hour of math, an hour for social studies, an hour for science. I think the interim is much longer. I think the interim may take that,
Uh-huh.
like 2 or 3 days to get that done completely.
Okay,
But that's only grade 6 and grade 9.
You mean the full, not the interim.
I mean the full summative assessment.
Yeah.
The interim's only like an hour's test.
Right.
The summative's much longer. And that's, I think, where she's like, that's an awful lot of time to be spending on a test.
okay, that's what she was referring to.
For just the 6th graders?
And, well, for in her building, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
But then again, I think she's kind of questioning the 5, 7, and 8, 1. I think she really likes the science, she wants to keep the science, but she feels like I-rated is giving her what she needs in reading and math.
I think it gives, I think it certainly gives them what they need. I think that's the design of it. The I-ready gives them what they need to instruct a child one-on-one.
Right.
But I'm not sure that the ACT Aspire doesn't give us a better tool
It might.
to evaluate whether what we're doing is
Well,
And
working.
college ratings.
we have the map scores, I mean.
Well, I mean, the problem with the MAP scores, of course, is that we have 2 years of MAP scores, and if they change it next year, then that's all we'll have, and we'll start over. Where the ACT is constant, at least it has been, I mean,
Yeah. And I think
they
they
see a future performance, of course.
Theoretically, the map should be that way too.
Well, it should be, but it isn't.
And the ACT will correlate with the ACT, and so it'll kind of give you an idea of college readiness, you know, and that would be good. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because if teachers don't see the value of ACT Aspire to them, and they see more value in the I-rated, they're going to want to go with the I-rated. And it may not have value. Now, I will tell you, the high school seems to like ACT Aspire more, because they're also getting much closer. They're 2 or 3 years away from you know,
Exactly.
doing something.
Right.
And so I can see that, but unless the teachers feel that it has value and that it's worth giving it, they don't want to give up the instructional time. And I think that's where Tina's.
I can understand that. Here's the thing that I think, though. I think that if you give it to a kid the same test 5 or 6 times, they get better at taking the test,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So I think that when ACT time comes for these kids that have taken it 3 times, I think they'll do a better job. I think if you sit a kid down, he has no idea what a 3-hour test looks like, he is not gonna do well. He or she. Right? So I think there's some instructional value in giving the darn thing over a course of years.
Yeah, that part I would agree with.
well, I don't know if
That's
it's, I don't know if I'd call it instructional value, it's more test-taking value,
Is-
you know?
Isn't that instruction?
Well, I don't know, depends on what you're, you know, are we wanting kids to be knowledgeable, or are we wanting them to be able to take a test?
Well, it doesn't matter if they have the knowledge, if they can't demonstrate the knowledge,
Yeah.
right? That's what a test
But,
is.
but if we're giving it, you know, freshmen, sophomore, and juniors in high school, they're getting practice there, but, so, is it necessary, what I'm saying, is it necessary to give it elementary through middle school?
I don't know about elementary, for sure, but if we're gonna have kids college and career ready, and we're gonna focus beginning in the middle school, then I think it's worth doing it in the middle school.
Well, there haven't been any decisions made. She's just looking at it right now, just because of the amount of time it takes. And she'll obviously reevaluate that at the end of the year and decide if that's what she wants to do. Personally, I mean, I still see that there's value in the ACT Aspire, because I always like the fact that you can coordinate it to the ACT. And I guess the value I had was that it just, I guess more as a parent, is that I would like to know if my kid's on track.
Right.
I mean, I want to know if my kid's on track for college. You know, and I want to know before they're junior in high school. I mean, I want to know before they take the ACT, the test the first time, if they're struggling,
But
as it relates to the ACT standards, you know?
Right. So we need to figure out how to get it out to the parents, even if it's the form
Yeah.
on the ACT site.
Well, we can get it out to the parents anytime, but it's getting it out to the parents in a way that's understandable. And to me, the only way you're going to do that is to have a conversation. I mean, you need to sit down and explain the data.
Is it not like the iReady stuff, it's just, like, I mean, does like the ACT not have a, you know, print button and you just, you know, print out each student's thing and then you mail them off to the parents?
Yeah, no, we can do that. It's just the report itself is difficult to understand. And parents, if they don't expect it, they're going to say, what's this thing I have in the mail?
Well, it's no different than the ACT test, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just give you a separate score and a total score,
Right.
right?
Right. I mean, it'll do that, except it also, but it gives you ranges and
Yeah.
everything else. It's not just spitting out a number.
Right.
You know, it says you have done better than, 79% of other kids your age, blah, blah,
Then our
blah.
kids, then our parents will learn how ACT works too. It's educational all the way around.
Exactly.
Well, I don't think I would, yeah, I mean, you just send out like a school reach phone call on the day you're gonna.
Oh, you want me to give like a 45 minute?
Call Bill Hall with any questions.
Go down to number 3 on your ACT report. This means this.
No, you could just simply say that we are mailing out your child's ACT.
If you have questions, give us a call.
It's as
You
simple
just
as
give
that,
me a
right?
call.
I mean, just encourage them to contact
Yeah.
their child's teacher for more
Yeah.
information with questions.
You know, people can
We get
read,
a lot of them.
that's right.
I'm not sure how many phone calls we get, but yeah, I think. No, it's not anything. So anyway. Yeah. Otherwise, so do you like the balanced scorecard?
Yeah, I have a
Is that
question.
giving you what you want?
I would suggest we seriously consider dropping the iReady stuff.
Take it off the balanced scorecard?
And, you know, I want to hear the information from administrators and whoever needs to present that. And, you know, I want to hear, is it being, effective? Is it being, do you feel like we're...
I mean, we can still give you data that talks about growth
Yeah,
during the year.
right, that's what, and we should get
Because this isn't
that.
going to show growth.
No.
But,
I mean, it will on those 2 yellow cells, on those
Okay.
yellow cells. Because the next time we give it, those yellow cells should go up. It'll just tell you, well, it went from 22 to 48.
Yeah.
But that's all it's going to tell you.
But we can,
But the ones that they give you will do it by grade level.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, well, yeah, this many 7th graders went up, or went to tier 1, this many 8th graders, this many 9th graders, and so
and
forth.
we're gonna want to put this on our website. And if it's confusing to us,
Yeah.
it's gonna be
There's a lot of numbers now,
confusing
for
to
sure.
others.
I agree with that.
You know, you okay?
Yeah,
Everybody want to take that off?
Yeah, fine with that.
Okay. Okay.
My question on it, when I look down here at the ACT Aspire at benchmark in English, reading, science, and math, and we look down here at our goal is line number 7, I mean, why do we have different percentages that we determined would be our goal? You know, in English, we're at 71%, reading is 43, science and math are at 40%,
Yeah,
is what our
and-
goal is. How do we, how do we determine that's where our goal was?
Yeah, and I would need to visit with Chris. I think
Right.
he set an average. I think he looked at what an average was, and he based us against the average, whatever the average is, so.
State average.
Yeah, or state or national average in this case on the ACT Aspire. So I'm guessing I would have to find out from Chris how he set that. Because you're right, I mean, a good point about the balanced scorecard is that it's only as good as the rubric that you have. Because we could really make that rubric tell us all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we could be all in the green by next time, you know, just by changing the criteria.
Right.
So we gotta be honest with ourselves about really what the goals are and what we want our kids to do. And just like the state average on the map, I mean, I think, yeah, it'd be great to hit the state average. I think that's our goal right now, but that's not our end all.
Right,
That's what we're striving for now. We get there, then we wanna go beyond that.
yep,
You know, but we have to have some place to start. And so I think we determined that the 4 criteria was a good state average number. And, because we're not there, and so we can aspire to that. But then I think that if we hit it, then we keep going, so.
Okay.
All right. So take off the I-80, anything else? The plan is to come back to this, present this to you about at least 3 times a year, maybe 4. Probably one at the very end of the year as well. And just kind of see where it takes us. I mean, this is a work in progress. It's only as good as you all want it. So if there's stuff on it that you don't want, tell me. If there's stuff on it you need on it, tell me. And we'll continue to try to tweak that a bit and make it exactly what you want. So. Okay? All right. Can we move on?
I'm good.
Okay, the next item, just briefly, if we have a little bit of time, I'm just looking at the clock to make sure we have time for executive session, but just reviewing the results of the community survey. And there's just a few of them that I tagged, and this might go toward, I mean, you guys have already read all this, it's probably been a few months since you've looked at it, but just a few things that I thought were pertinent as it comes to board members. You know, the one question we have on there, the preparation of students for career technical training, that's a big deal.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 10 of the community survey, 10 of 19. Whoops, I'm in, let me go back here. Okay, well, before we do that, go back to 3 of 19 first. I had that tagged as well. This is just information. I thought it was kind of interesting. The question was, did you vote in the last school election? So I'm assuming that we meant the school board election, right? And interestingly, it was 54% said yes and 45% said no. So that was the turnout in a non-general election. So which might give you an indication of the kind of turnout you might have in a bond issue, which I think might be even much larger than that, especially if there's a bond issue on the ballot. Especially if that's the only issue on the ballot.
4%
Oh,
of
is that?
that's just 54%
Of the people that
of
answered it.
respondents.
That's
to the
right,
survey.
434 people.
Yeah.
So we kind of like to think, well, plus or minus however much, we'd like to think hopefully that's what our general population would be. But many of those are also school people, so that makes a difference as well. So, anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. The other one the next one is over on 10 out of 19. We had the question, preparation of students for career technical training. 41% felt that we were doing pretty good with that. That's basically a C+. And C+ isn't good enough, but I think we're doing a lot more than people are aware of. I mean, when we look at the balanced scorecard, and we have 60 kids that are attending the Career Center. 60, we got 2 buses going over there every day. You know, I mean, that's really good stuff, you know. And yeah, it's expensive, I get it, and we don't have a Career Center here, but it gives our kids an opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise. We have kids that are, 3 years ago, could care less about being in those programs, and now we have kids that are striving to get in there and going through the application process, and they want in there. And so when they graduate, they get a certification as a CNA, they can go out and work right now, you know. So I think there's some really good things coming out of that. And, you know, I'll give you an update on the MoDOT buildings here in a bit. But
Can I comment?
Sure.
There, I think something we need to work on is educating the public about how ready some of our kids are, or most of our kids are, whenever they leave school. Because just like Shane has talked about, you know, there's a perception out there that a lot of our kids coming out of school can't
Yeah.
hold down a job at McDonald's or do anything. And I don't think that's correct, you know. And I don't know how you change that perception, but I think that there is a perception of that out there.
Yeah, I think one way that you can do that, and then it's very difficult, but we have post-graduation surveys, and then report those results to our community and let them know
Yeah.
that you know that out of 120 graduates last year, did you know we've got 100 of them that are either in college or they're employed somewhere or they're in a technical school or something.
Yep, and see, yeah, I agree, and, but you don't hear that.
And then not only that, 4 years down the road, say, oh, guess what? They graduating class 5 years ago, we had over half of them, 60% of them completed a program.
Yep.
They've got their degree now.
I'll help you out with that. As an employer, I can tell you that there is a portion of the students graduating that cannot hold down a job,
Right.
but it's to no fault of the school district. It's the fact that they don't want to hold down a job. It's part of their upbringing.
Yep, oh, I hear
So-
that, yep.
But I think that's the perception is that, no, they can't hold down a job, but it's not the school district's fault.
Well, I think part of it too is all the press that comes out when kids, when they graduate, or it seems like we're talking about the kids that are going to college. And the public doesn't know about the kids that are doing other things, going into employment, or maybe even going to a technical school. I think they hear about the kids that are going to college. They don't know that those other kids are doing things too.
You know, such things as, and I'm glad we're streaming this, people need to know that we got 60 of our kids that are going to the Career Center every day. I mean, 60 of our juniors and seniors are going to the Career Center every day. That's 60 out of, that's a quarter of them. 25% of all our juniors and seniors are going over to the Career Center every day for training. I mean, that's career readiness there. I mean, we got kids that are interested in welding and computer science and you know, CNA and health services. There's just so many things that they're involved in, fire science, that people just don't know. So I think we need to do a better job communicating that. I would agree with you.
And what does that cost per each
It's about
student?
$1,900 per student.
And then we offset some of
Carl
that
Perkins.
cost with the Perkins. Is it
Yeah,
all of
they
it or
don't-
some
no,
of
they
it?
take all of our Carl Perkins. They take all of our Carl Perkins and they discount the rest. And whatever's left after they apply to Carl Perkins is what they charge us for tuition. So all of our Carl Perkins goes to the Career Center.
Which is something just over $30,000.
About
right?
that, I think that's about right.
So they go take it all, and then whatever, like the balance is left, then they send us a bill?
That is correct.
Okay.
But if we're under that, they don't refund it.
No.
Oh, really?
No, we get a credit for
Perkins
next
money's
year.
gone.
Yeah.
If we have one kid go down there, they get all the Perkins money.
Well, what do I think about that? So,
And that is a one-year agreement, by the way. I did check it. It's a year-to-year deal.
so do we, okay, so we know for sure that it is $30,000 that we give them?
Yeah, I think.
I think it was around
ballpark.
33 last time.
Yeah, it's in the ballpark. That's
For
pretty.
last year, you mean?
No, it's been a few years ago.
I mean, I can get that information. Would
So
you like that
if
information?
our attendance has gone way up, then so has that bill.
Yes.
No, yeah.
Carl Perkins has.
Yeah,
it.
what we're actually.
Carl Perkins doesn't change,
How much we're
but our
paying you,
bill
that
has to go way up.
That is
Yeah.
You
right.
said 60 kids go down there at almost $2,000 apiece, so that's, what, 100,
Right.
101,000?
Well, but
Minus our Carl
Minus
Perkins.
the 30, yeah,
Yeah, it's a chunk of money.
9,000.
You know, but if it wasn't, not to mention the buses back and forth every day, and, but still, I mean, it's a good thing to do.
It is
It's
a good-
worth the money. It
But is
really
there
is.
other money out there that we can go and apply for? Other grants for VOTEC and
Specifically for
technical
that, I
education?
don't, I mean, I haven't heard of a lot. And then I guarantee you that, Josh Cotter down there and Michael Lowry would let us know if there's anything available. Because they really love the fact that we have more kids going there, obviously, for obvious reasons.
Well, yeah.
I mean, Marty Spence, I think I shared at a board meeting recently, was named the statewide award for the sending principal of the year to career centers. Yeah, I mean, we're sending 60 kids there. We're sending 25% of our kids every day to the career center, you know, and that is because that's what they want to do. I mean, these are kids that want to do that. Now, that doesn't mean, I mean, I've talked to several kids. I know one young lady in particular that wants to be an OBGYN nurse. So she's doing the CNA piece. Well, she's doing that as a stepping stone to get into the nursing program at Missouri State. So I think it's a perfectly valid reason to do that. Not only can you do that while you're going to school, you can go get a job as a CNA and support yourself. You know, so kids are seeing that, and they don't necessarily want to go to Missouri State Springfield, they don't necessarily want to go to Mizzou. They just want to go out and get a really quick education, a quick degree, a quick certification, start making money. You know, and if they go the 2 years, it works out, great. If they want to go 2 more, they'll go 2 more. But they also want to be able to make money sooner
Right.
and not have to go to school for 4 years. What's that?
And not owe much.
And not owe much, that's right. And that's the other thing, you can go to Career Center, you can go to the 2-year school, and when you graduate, your student loans aren't near as high as if you go to a 4-year university. Yeah, and it's like crazy. Yeah. Somebody was telling me, and they were interested in trying to, like, they wanted to get their kid into Notre Dame. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and well, I wonder who that. But it was like, the tuition there's like $60,000 a year. And not to mention the fact it's very difficult to get in there. But if you get in there, it's one of the best schools around. I mean, that's just a fact, you know. And so you get what you pay for, but there are kids, I've known other kids that go to school, go to a 4-year university, get a social work degree, right? And so they graduate with $80,000 in debt, and they make $30,000 a year, you know, and it's like, they'll never pay it off. They'll never pay it off. They'll be in debt for 15 years, 20 years, just trying to get out of school. You know, so it's tough. And so when you have, for some kids, the economic option's a better option. It just is, you know. But if you have really bright students who can do well, I think they ought to go as high and as far as they want to go. Price is no object. So anyway, that's my food for thought. Other items on here that I think we're just kind of, I think bird walk just a little bit. School district's efforts share information with citizens. We got a C+ on that. Well, we're doing well. We're streaming everything, so I hope that goes up to at least a D-, because I think we're sharing a lot of stuff with our community now by virtue of streaming our board meetings.
And we've talked about other things that we want to share.
The school district's efforts to, if we go over to page 13, the Willow Springs School District's responsiveness to citizens' concern, we got a C+ on that, it's like 40%. That isn't necessarily board level, that could be people going in and feeling as though they're not being listened to or heard or whatever. But I'm not sure where that came from. Again, 40%, I would like to see that higher. I would like to feel that citizens feel like we're more responsive to their concerns, that if they have an issue, we really do listen to them and do our best, even though the end result may not be what they want, but at least they've been heard. I think that's important that we send that message that we do that, we will take the time for them. So, see on page 14, no, not 14, I'm sorry, 15. On page 15, quality of school facilities, which is right in line with our conversation this evening. And we have about 50% of those respondents said that they felt like it was either really good or the top 2 choices, either good, really good, or good on our facilities. So they feel very good about that. Not very many were down in the lower rung of that. So I think for the most part, patrons feel that our facilities are adequate and they're in good shape, you know, which if we're talking about a bond issue, might be some education that needs to happen just a little bit.
Let me ask you a question about the streaming piece. And I know we occasionally look at the count of people who are currently watching. Does Andrew have a counter on YouTube where he can see how many times it's actually
I think Mandy pulled it up the other night.
Yeah, you can see it.
I think it's like last night, like Monday, I think there were like 15 at one time, live, you know, but.
Yeah, but I mean afterwards.
I think you can go in there.
Yeah, he can archive it, he can tell you how many
watching
total
since.
people viewed it.
Yeah.
He can do that. Are you interested in that data?
I was just curious. If I
You
can
can
pull
do
it
it.
up, I will.
Well, can we
I have
pull up the archive or just the
Yes,
live?
you can do that.
I think you can look at it right
We
there.
go
and see
2
how many
weeks
people
later and
viewed
say
it,
how
right?
many viewed it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are you checking that out?
I am.
All right, I'd be good to, yeah, it's good to know.
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
But I know there's a way to track it, though. Maintenance of school districts, fields, and grounds, and that was really high. I mean, 65% of our folks, 75% of our folks are very pleased with the maintenance of our facilities and our grounds. We do a good job maintaining what we have.
That's important.
It is, and then I think a lot of that goes to the people that we have in those positions. I mean, they're good people. They work really hard, and people trust that they're doing the right thing. If you go over to page, what's the next one at?
So we only have 2 watching right now, it says.
Two.
Can
That's
you tell,
it.
can you tell how many?
There's actually 3 watching.
3. Somebody just jumped
You're-
on.
you're the
Oh, you're the third one. We should all log in. No, jumping up about him. We can put it on there. That's good.
It should show.
I didn't say I was the smart one.
So now they're doing Luke and Matt.
Oh,
And also on the top of page 16 is worth noting too. I think it's important that people think we're good stewards.
Oh, very good, yeah, excellent.
Well, you're thinking about passing the bond.
223, no,
Right.
233.
They're not gonna pass one if they don't think
For
that.
Monday.
So that was Monday night's meeting,
See, that's not bad, 233 views on Monday.
233.
No, that's quite a bunch.
That's not bad at all.
Quite a bunch.
That's very good, excellent, that's good.
You just need to be able to watch it on your own time.
Exactly, I mean, why do I mean?
I think that's astonishing, though, that we have 15 or 20 viewers when it's live, and then,
Yeah.
Well, we're on
200
during,
when
we're
it's-
on during The Voice, you know.
Oh, is that what it is?
Application is too steep.
We are competing for network time here, so.
It was, the October meeting was 2:30. So,
It's not bad. Was there one that's like 500 or anything like that?
I don't know.
Okay, on page 19 overall, oh, that's nothing, yeah. Page 19 overall, what grade did you give the Willow Springs School District? About through a B minus, and that was like 82, or no, that's like 62% of our folks were either a 4 or 5, you know, 86 when you add in choice 3. Obviously, I'd rather that be up to B plus or an A minus, you know, so I think there's some work there. And you kind of wonder how much of that isn't just individual students, but just confidence in our school system and communicating with them regularly, and how much of that is PR, just communication. You know, I think communication goes a long way. And then priorities I thought were interesting what they did. And obviously, it's good to see that academics was number 1. School safety is number 2. And on the questions, all the school safety questions were the highest ones we had. Everybody's really happy with our school safety. The things that we've done, the people we have in place, they really believe that our schools are very, very safe for our kids. And that's a testament to a lot of the work and then our SRO and things that we've done in the process. So you kind of see where they feel our interest are. So I don't think there's anything in there that's going to say, okay, aha, we better start doing this now. You know, I think we've done some things in response to that. I don't know if it's in response to that, but we're steering our board meetings, and that's, to me, that's open communication and transparency. I mean, I'm not sure there's any other school boards in this area, let alone most of the state, that's during their board meetings. I know there's nobody in the SCA.
Houston was.
Oh, do they? Do they really, on live stream like we do? Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
You know, August had 311, July was 230, June was 318. Kindergarten graduation was only 103.
Oh, well, we're doing
So
better
we
than
need the
kindergarten
kindergarten
graduation. Well, there you go. Something was going on in August, so that must have been the
There's
budget.
probably 300 people at the graduation.
That's why nobody left to watch it.
Nobody was at the graduation and watching it.
Yeah.
It's like a 2-minute to 20-second delay or something, so you can see what you missed at the meeting.
It is, exactly. Okay. Unless there's any other questions on that, I don't think there's anything that we need to like change the direction we're going on with things. I think we're doing some things to be responsive to that. But I will say that long-term, if we get to the point that we're ready to do something significant, a year or 2 down the road, then we really need to ramp up our communication. I mean, it's just gotta be huge. And that's just, it's not just me, but it's everybody on the board. I mean, we have to really go take it to the public and help them understand the needs of the school district.
I think we also, I think the other thing that this did for us is to let them know that we care about what they have to
That's
say, right? And I think it wouldn't hurt for us to do that again.
So my question, yeah, that's exactly right. My question is, do you want to do another survey this spring? And if we do, I'm not sure that we need to do the same questions, but you might want to start thinking about questions that you'd like to ask our community, especially in light of some of the conversations we've had there this evening. You know, I mean, you can ask questions very simple that if we had a bond issue today and we wanted it for this and this and this, how would you vote? You know, and you can ask those questions, nothing wrong with that. You know, you're what, you got plenty of time. If you find out that they don't know, if they say no, then you ask a follow-up question. For what reason did you say no? Was it tax dollars? Was it you don't think we need it, blah, blah, blah? And you can ask questions that will give you kind of a feeler for the community before you even go to them. You know, then you know that you got a year to take the message to them and help them understand. I mean, they just need to understand. A lot of times they just don't know. You know, it's not that they're against it, they just don't know. You know, it's our responsibility to help them understand what the needs of our school system are.
You know, just real quick here, okay, so on page 18 is the school providing a quality balanced meal, a nutritional
I
meal.
saw that one.
This was a C rating, and this is kind of one of those things too, that I don't think people understand that the school district has to follow certain criteria.
That's right.
Somebody has to count how much sodium, potassium, calories, fat, protein,
Correct.
carbohydrates
Correct,
that all of the students get.
correct. And they don't understand that,
I mean,
typically.
I barely understand it.
Right.
But I went on the school website, looked up the lunch menu, and I'm sure it's just a program. But you know, everything is listed out there, your fat, protein, carbohydrates. But if the federal government says a kid only needs this much and you can only serve that much, I don't know how you get around that
Yeah.
and educating the community.
You don't when their kids are coming home hungry.
Right. Well, that
But
and.
if we're gonna take federal money, then you gotta
Oh, I
follow
agree.
federal guidelines. So that's something, I'm not saying that, but it's all a part, you know,
Well, I think part of what folks don't understand are,
Of-
besides the nutritional guidelines. is being-
Miscommunication.
Yeah, but being part of the National School Lunch Program, we have to follow those guidelines. We just don't have an option because we get audited on all
Right.
that. But we also, folks need to understand the difference between what we call offer versus serve. Because we are offer right now. We're not serve, okay? We are serve at the elementary.
what does that mean?
But that means, serve, we will give the same thing to every single
Everything.
kid, all right?
Okay.
If it's offer, we will offer several options. So if you don't want this, take this. If you don't want this, take this. If you don't want that, there's a salad bar right back there, you know? So there's no reason for them to go sit down with an empty tray unless they're like extremely picky,
Right.
you know? But they have more than, if they don't want this on tray, they have another option, you know? And we have some kids that will go like at the high school, and now in the middle school, they'll just basically dish up on salad. I mean, they'll eat a salad, and a lot of folks do that these days. Their lunch is a salad, you know? So that's not unusual, that's not underfeeding them either.
Right.
Some kids choose to do that because they like salad, that's what they want to eat. But if they don't like the entree, they certainly have an option. Like at the high school, for instance, if they don't like this, they can take something different. If they don't want that, they can fill up on the salad bar. If they don't want that, they also have the store, the store that they can go buy Hot Pockets or whatever they want. You know, so there's other options out there as well. And they would have to spend their money to go out and buy something else if that's what they want.
Right.
You know, at one point
Outside
in
the
time,
cafeteria.
at one point in time, we talked about a to-go bag in the high
We
school.
have that right now, we're
How's
doing that
work?
right, it's working out very well. It started out slow, we have more and more kids that are doing it.
What, is that for breakfast?
And that's for breakfast, it's grab and go. It's grab and go, they go in, they grab a little baggie, and they might have a granola bar and some other stuff in there. And high school kids, for them, they're very transient, they don't want to sit down and eat the breakfast, so they just go in there and grab it. I think that's been very good for kids, I think for high school kids especially. The other thing is that we're offering breakfast at middle school, and that number's gone up too. I mean, all those kids used to have to go to elementary, not now, we're up to about 80 middle school kids eating
Wow.
breakfast now.
Wow.
So more and more kids are eating it because it's right there in Grimes.
All right.
And they don't have to walk over to the elementary school to eat breakfast.
How many
So that's-
Gabagos are we doing?
Dad, I can get the data, I'm not sure how it is right now. It started out slow, then it went up. I don't know if it's taking off, it's gotten old now or whatever, but we serve it every day. And I know Marty has a teacher that monitors it because you have to mark down what they take so we get funding on that,
Oh,
so.
And you may not know the answer to this, but, okay, say we're talking about the high school and they're, we're talking about the offer versus served. What about the free and reduced kids? Did they have that option?
I think all kids have that option. All kids have that option.
But the
Because
free
even
and
the-
reduced
Yeah,
program
because
will
it's
pay
still,
for either.
yeah, it's still a
Okay.
fundable meal, refundable meal.
all right.
Yeah, you just offer different options. If they don't like this entree, you have another option instead. But it's all refundable.
The only thing that's not refundable is if they go to the school store.
Correct, yeah, and that's on them, they gotta pay for that out of their pocket, you know? And we have kids that do that, I mean, when I'm over there at lunch, there's a lot of kids lined up at the store just getting Hot Pockets or whatever they wanna eat, you know? And so that's fine too, and so there isn't really a reason for a kid to go home hungry, I mean, there's stuff to eat there, but they may not like the primary entree that day, you know, or they may not like either one of them, and so they don't pick them. You know, so you can always go out to the store and get something else, you know, out in the hallway and buy something else. So.
And like, I just saw that C, and I'm like, you know, this is just one more example of miscommunication, or
Right.
no
Well,
communication.
And I think part of it though, in fairness, and I've been doing this all the years, it's no different than school food and hospital food. You know, nobody ever has a positive opinion about either one. It's just, over the years, it's been that way. Well, I take that back. I worked in a little bitty school one time in southwest Kansas, that had these old German folks, and they could really care less about the National School Lunch Program. And so, you know, we had huge cinnamon rolls and huge bowls of chili with carrot sticks, and it was some good eating, you know. So, yeah, I'm not saying that completely, but in most places, yeah, I mean, people, it's
Right.
just not, you have guidelines you have to follow.
And everybody's idea of a balanced and nutritional meal is gonna be different.
Yeah.
My opinion is a lot different than Kyle's.
The kids, they don't like it because it's not McDonald's. It's not
There you go.
McDonald's.
Yeah, the middle school has the right program. They all sit around at a round table, right? And then there's like 8 of them.
Oh,
And then whatever you don't like, you put in the middle, and then that's up for grabs.
It's up for grabs. It's like a common deal.
I love it.
So, yeah. Anything else on the survey? That all? The only other, a couple other items real quick, and then if we can move to executive session shortly, but, the refresher training requirement we've already talked about, and I don't know if anybody's like clamoring to do it like right away. It's just an hour that you have to do. We have the elections coming up. And then I looked at MSBA stuff. I put some questions in there, and frequently asked questions might help you if you have any questions about it. But in reality, I think they said you really, if you don't, as long as you get something done by March of 2021,
Yeah.
you should be
So,
okay.
yeah, so we're good until.
Yeah, good for like 18 months.
Till-
It's not like we need to do it next month or the month after that for that
I just
matter.
now came across.
Man, just keep it on your radar. I mean, sometime you need to do it, and you can't, going to MSBA convention doesn't count. And you gotta actually, you can go online, I think they got an online version for an hour, you can go on and do that. We could have a special meeting, and we could do the online version, throw it up on the screen, and be done in an hour, and you're all good to go.
There you go.
So we could solve it that way, real quick, you don't have to go anywhere.
And we could do
I'll
it
feed
together.
you can do it together, kumbaya,
Copy off of Adrian.
kumbaya stuff, still all answers, you know, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, just keep that in mind, it's something that that we need to take care of sometime in the not too distant.
Is that training something we've got to pay for, that this?
Yeah, it's not.
MSBA's charging for that,
Yeah,
right?
they charge, yeah. And they'll come out and do it at $150 an hour, you know.
Or we can get
Or we
online
can
and
do
do
it online and do
it.
it.
It's probably fairly
It's a
cheap,
lot
I would
cheaper.
think.
It's a lot cheaper that way than if you bring them out here.
Yeah.
Or you can go to, like, I think they offered one in Springfield a while back, and it's like a 3-hour training, and MSBA will go down, that costs too.
Okay.
But then to do that, it's usually on the weekdays, so you gotta take off.
Yeah, it sounds like the online deal.
So I think that's a better option, just come in here, we do it for an hour, and you're good for a year.
We're not doing it on our own time?
I think you can, actually. I think you can do it on your own time. You just have to have some way to document that you did it. So I don't know how they go about doing that. But I think there is an online version that you can do. We already talked about capital projects. The only other item real quick, and other initiatives, you know, we're not really moving forward with paperless. We're offering the option if you want to do it, you know, not tonight, but we have the Chromebooks here. We'll just kind of ease into it if you're at all interested in it. We're not biting off the bullet where we can just say everybody's gonna do it, you know, but if you start trying it out, I mean, did you do it Monday night?
I did.
Did it work?
Yeah, it works
Did you
fine.
like it?
Yeah, it works fine.
All right, and so, and I think Brent, you do it too, don't you? And so if you want to ever get to the point where you don't have to bring stacks of paper home and fill up file cabinets and everything else, it might be an option to do that. It's not a huge cost savings to the district, because we do, 7 or 8 of these packets, not a lot of them, it's not a huge cost savings, but it's just, it might be easier, it might make your life easier, you know, as far as having to deal with all the paperwork. Or on the other hand, you might want the paper, you know, that's just kind of up to you. Have a winner. So, do agree, I already talked about that. Update on the MoDOT buildings, I will be taking a group, and there's a few coming with me, and then we've also got some folks that are going to meet us up there. I think Representative David Evans is going to be at Lynn Technical College. We have Wendell Bailey will be there, David Montgomery's going to meet us up there with Coastal Energies. Wendell, of course, going to go, myself, Bev Hicks is going to meet us there. I was able to contact another gentleman over in Mountain View, his name is Neil Nesson, who is a graduate of the Nashville Automotive Diesels College. And he actually runs his own business, Injection Diesel Performance, over in Mountain View. So I asked him to go on with this, he might have some background as a student and or owner of a diesel mechanic shop. So we're looking at that specifically. It's just to get some ideas, there's no commitment. And it's just, if we start something, what does it take to start something very, very small? And if we do that, what would the role of the school district be? I've already shared with them as far as the MoDOT buildings are concerned, we don't have any interest in owning those buildings. unless that's changed. The board may tell me something different. But I'm kind of speaking on behalf of the board when I say that we really don't want the buildings. But on the other hand, if we can in any way assist to develop a program, and we can do it in a way that's cost effective and we can afford it, and it helps our kids, then yeah, we'll look at it. I mean, let's just go up there and get some information, bring it back and see what we got. So it's just gonna be a very, very slow process, so. The only other item I have, and then we can go to executive, is there, just on my performance goals, and that's not a huge deal. I mean, I think the last time we had it, I was doing a continuous improvement, I was doing communication with the community, reaching out to the community, continuing to do that. I just want to make sure that if there's anything else you want me doing other than those things, I mean, let me know what those things are. I mean, if we decide between right now, I think long-range planning could be a big deal for us. And that might be, depending on what happens with the IGA, assuming that you're going to adopt that, depending on what happens with the IGA, that could dictate a lot of what my work will be. Just in terms of reaching out to the community and setting that long-range plan in place and getting architects in and getting people who can put a picture to what we're trying to accomplish. And that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and effort just doing that, you know, it just takes a lot of time. And then actually having the process of the election itself, door to door and talking to people, and it's just a big deal. So that's something that might come up down the road. But I guess, not that we need to belabor it right here, right now necessarily in this forum, but if there's something that, I guess individually you want me to work on, I mean, we can talk about it another time in a more closed session there, which is fine. I just want to make sure that you're thinking about things you want me working on, all right? Because I think it's important that I'm doing the work that this board wants me to do moving forward. So just, I guess we'll leave it at that, think about it. And if there is anything different that you want me to work on, just reach out to me, shoot me an email, whatever. And I can bring that back to the board collectively another time. Fair enough?
Is your evaluation in January?
My evaluation is in January, I believe.
And then the
We have the
board's is in December?
self-evaluation too. What's that?
The boards is in December?
I believe you're right.
I think it's the board's in December, mine in January. That is correct. That is correct.
So,
So I need to be bringing a self-evaluation to the board here by the next, I need to get it out to y'all. Because have we done it in December and
We
then?
go over it in December.
We go over it, so it's done by then.
wait, what do we go over in
Don't
December?
we go over the
Board
board evaluation in
self-evaluation
December? So we
results.
need to get that out and.
So I need to get it out pretty quick to the
Yeah.
board, so you can do that and get it back to me so we can
Then
compile
I'll
the
get,
results.
I'll get to work and shortly thereafter, I'm
Okay.
getting the stuff out for the superintendent evaluation.
I will get the self-evaluation out either tomorrow or early next week, so you guys can start on that.
And then we do yours in January,
Yes.
and then you do the principals in
February.
February.
And then teachers are March or April,
That's right, okay.
so typically. Okay? And I think we've exhausted everything on the list. I think other than executive session, now what we can do, we still have a possible action item. So I don't know if folks want to do that, and then we can do an executive session.
You know, we've had a good discussion over, doing the, what is it called?
The,
IGA.
Yeah, the IGA. I believe it's something, you know, I'm interested in doing. We've got a motion in front of us. The motion would be to approve entering into a professional development agreement with Integrity Energy Partners LLC to conduct an investment grade audit for the Willow Springs School District. Would anybody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Dean, a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? I'll call for a vote. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And opposed? Very well.
do we have anyone at this point then who would be willing to serve on a subcommittee to assist with this on behalf of the board? I'd like to have at least 2 members do that.
I will.
I'd be interested.
Would you? Okay. Dean and Tony, okay? All right. Then I will reach out to Ryan Evans tomorrow and let him know, and we'll start setting up times to meet, because they want to meet with us to talk about, and with engineers too, and they come out as far as the direction we want to go, and projects that we want to kind of leverage. So you guys will be part of that process.
Would anybody like to take this home and study over it?
Digest it.
I would.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and now, okay, now hold on, let me make sure I got that. Who made the
I've got
motion?
I
You
did.
have it? Who made the motion? You did?
I did, Farrell second.
Farrell, second. I believe that's all for open session tonight. I would receive a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Coach, which one
Coach
did you
Tolly.
call?
And a second by,
Just a second.
all right. Any discussion? Is that by roll call?
Aye.
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 And aye. You can now turn off the shit.
quick break?
Yep.
Good night.
You too.